Hello and welcome to another patch from scratch video in which I improvise a modular synth patch from scratch. Today I'd like to create a drone sound, which is typically a continuously playing sound which changes slowly over time. So let's see how we can do this today. At first I will take my Intellijel Dixie VCO's pulse width output, or actually pulse wave output, and route it into the mixer, which is connected to my recorder directly. And it sounds like this. Maybe let's dial the frequency down a little bit more. Okay. And then for a first thing, I would like to modulate the pulse width of the pulse wave. And I'll use a very slow LFO from the Quadra, which is an envelope generator, which you can also set into LFO mode, so it will just loop that envelope and you get a triangle envelope out of that. And because I don't want it to control the whole range of the pulse width modulation, I'll just put that into an attenuator first and route the attenuated LFO into the pulse width modulation input, because the Intellijel Dixie doesn't have a pulse width modulation knob for the intensity. Let's listen to that. And let's make it really slow. Yeah, something like this. All right. And next up, let's use a second VCO, the Malekko Anti-Oscillator. I'm using the Mayhem output and I'm patching it straight into the mixer as well. And let's see how they both sound together. Yeah, we can maybe decrease the frequency of the anti-oscillator. Yeah, like this, they're almost in unison. And now let's do the same thing we did with the pulse width modulation, namely getting a slow triangle wave from the Quadra into an attenuator, or actually we don't have to use an attenuator, because we can go directly into the wave control input of the anti-oscillator. And I'll just turn down the Dixie so that we can hear just the anti-oscillator. And this is a slower, faster triangle envelope, or actually LFO, because we're in LFO mode. And this is with a slow triangle. And now let's add the Intellijel Dixie again. Now let us multiply. Actually, we don't even have to multiply an output. We'll just use the triangle wave output of the anti-oscillator and plug it into the make noise mod Demix, which I actually haven't used so far. So let's just hope that I get it right. I'll just plug in the triangle output of the anti-oscillator into the signal input, and then I'll use the square wave output from the Dixie and patch it into the carrier input, and then the output goes into the mixer. And let's just listen how that sounds like. Let's add the other VCOs. So like this we have quite a fat bass, which is slowly changing and pulsating a little bit. And now we can maybe add some filters. Let's filter the output of the ring modulator, the Modimix, Let's filter it with the Intellijel Micro VCF. And we'll use the low pass filter output. I'll just turn down everything else apart from the Demix. Okay, that's just a filter with a static cutoff frequency. And let's modulate this cutoff frequency with a slow square wave LFO, so that it jumps around a little bit. Yeah, now it's closed a little more, the filter, and now it jumps open a little bit. Let's increase the resonance a little bit. Okay, I think the Anti-Oscillator Mayhem output, it's very bright, so let's route that through the Erica Polivoks filter, which is also in LFO mode, in low pass mode, I mean. This is just the Anti-Oscillator through the Polivoks filter. And let's modulate the filter cutoff frequency with a triangle wave. Let me just get a proper cable here. Well, they're all tangled up, sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's use a triangle wave from the Quadra again into the CV input. Yeah, it's also very slow. And let's add the Demix sound again. And now let's see what happens when we change the frequency of one of the oscillators. Because we have the ring mod in there and several ways of changing, for example, the pulse width or the wave envelope of the anti-oscillator, we can get different pulsing sounds depending on the frequency of the oscillators. So maybe let's modulate one of those frequencies, or let's actually play a sequence into one of the volt per octave inputs. And for that I'm using my, well, first let's turn that down again, and then let's use the Turing machine sequence output in random mode. So it behaves basically like a sample and hold, which just outputs random CV sequences when fed with a clock signal. And let's patch that into the 1 volt per octave input of the anti-oscillator. And of course it still needs a clock, which I'll take from the expert sleeper's Disting module. And then let's turn down the range of the possible CV nodes a little lower. I think this should be around 3 volts maybe. And now let's listen to the anti-oscillator by itself. Let's turn up the volume of the Intellijel Dixie. Of course, the pitch of the Dixie will stay the same because it doesn't get any CV sequences. And now let's listen to the ring mod. And let's just listen to the ring mod by itself. And turn up the filter again. And because the pitch of the anti-oscillator changes, the behavior of the ring mod changes as well, or like the sound. Sometimes you hear more pulsing, sometimes less, and that's quite interesting, I think. Let's add the other two voices again. Let's turn down the micro VCF's cutoff frequency. Alright, and I think the Dixie is a little too bright, but I haven't got a filter left. But we could maybe change its output from the pulse width output to the triangle wave output. Or to the sine output, which is even cleaner and which just adds a layer below everything, which is kind of nice. Let's play around with the frequency of the Dixie. Okay, this is a little less dark. Next we could patch the micro VCF's output, which receives the square wave modulating the frequency, into the Synthrotek EKO Delay, because I think the quickly changing cutoff frequency will maybe make for some nice delayed sounds. Let's see if that turns out to be true. Let's turn the other two voices down and just listen to the ring mode. You know what? We also have a second frequency modulation, or actually filter cutoff frequency modulation input in the micro VCF. So let's use that to just subtly and slowly change the cutoff frequency as well. Again, using a slow triangle wave output of the Quadra. Because like this we can hear the effects of the resonance a little better, because it's not just a static change from one to another level from the square wave. And let's listen to the sine wave again. And then to the anti-oscillator. If we don't like those hard pitch changes, we could actually route the CV sequence through the make noise function and use the make noise function as a slew generator, which will smooth the sequence changes. Because the Turing machine also has the pulses expansion, which will just output random pulse sequences according to our main sequence, we could just route one of those gates or pulses into the second input of the Erica Synth Polivoks VCF. Man, my cables are all tangled up. Wow. And use that to affect the frequency. Yeah, that happens a little too often. So let's use the 1 and 2 output, which only outputs a gate when the first second bits are on. Let's see what happens when we play around with the resonance of the Polivoks VCF. That's a good bass drone, I would say. Let's see what happens when we modulate the Intellijel Dixie VCO with another fast wave. Let's see what I have here. We could use the Klangbauer wavetable oscillator to generate an audio rate CV basically from the main oscillator output. And let's route it into the linear FM input and increase the frequency of the wavetable VCO and change the wavetable. Maybe like this. And this of course changes the sound of the Demix output, because we're also frequency modulating the pulse width, the square wave output, sorry, of the Intellijel Dixie. This is now with the frequency of the modulating VCO turned down again. And now I'm changing the wave using the wavetable knob. And of course we can modulate that as well. If I find another LFO, and I'll just use the make noise function, which is also controlling the micro VCF's cutoff frequency. Yeah, this is getting a little noisier, which can be quite cool, I think. And now I'm just dialing in the anti-oscillator a little more again. And this is with the added sine wave from the Dixie VCO. Let's go through them step by step again, and then I think we can leave it at that. This has become a little more complex this time, maybe because we're modulating lots of things. So let's see if we can figure out what we did here. So the first thing is we have the Intellijel Dixie VCO, which is frequency modulated by the Klangbauer wavetable VCO, which waveform is modulated by an LFO. And the pulse width is modulated as well of the Intellijel Dixie, although we don't need that anymore because we're not using the pulse width output. So I'll just unpatch that. And this also means that we have a free LFO again. But yeah, we don't need that for now. And the sound from the sine wave goes directly into the mixer, and the sound from the square wave goes into the carrier signal input of the Demix. And the Demix sounds like that. It receives the square wave from the Dixie VCO and the triangle wave from the Anti-Oscillator, and the output goes into the micro VCF filter, which has its cutoff frequency modulated by a triangle VCO, a triangle LFO, and a square wave LFO. And that's... oh yeah, and after that it goes into the Synthrotek EKO, which adds a little more space around that sound, and the output of that goes into the mixer for this thing what we hear right now. And last but not least, the Malekko Anti-Oscillator, which receives a pitch sequence which is slewed by a function, and it also has the wave shape modulated by a slow triangle LFO. And the Mayhem output goes into the Polivoks VCF in low pass mode, which is frequency modulated, or cutoff frequency modulated by a gate from the pulses expander, and also by a slow triangle LFO. And the output of the filter goes directly into the mixer as well for this sound here. Now let's add them together one last time and play around with the controls a little bit. So thanks a lot for watching. If you have questions, go ahead and post them below this video. And yeah, of course, like, share, subscribe as well. And see you next time. Thanks. Bye.